Welcome back everyone to the channel where hidden treasures are uncovered and everyday pocket change is transformed into stories of unbelievable wealth, mystery, and possibility, and today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating, controversial, and talked about modern coin legends in American numismatics, the astonishing tale of the 1996 D1 cent. A penny that many people have unknowingly spent, ignored, or tossed into jars, yet which has been whispered about in collector circles. As a coin so rare, so uniquely flawed, and so historically significant in its mistakes that under the right circumstances it could command a jaw-dropping valuation reaching as high as $14 million, and whether you are a seasoned collector, a curious beginner, or someone who has never thought twice about pennies, this story will make you look at every copper coin in a completely different way because the 1996 D Lincoln cent is not just a coin, it is a perfect storm of minting errors, production anomalies, transitional possibilities, and collector psychology all colliding at once, and to understand why such an ordinary-looking coin could theoretically reach a value that rivals famous art and rare stamps, we must start by understanding the context of the year 1996 itself, a time when the United States Mint was under intense production pressure, producing billions of cents annually, operating aging equipment, transitioning metal compositions, and pushing dies far beyond their intended lifespan, all while maintaining strict quality standards that, inevitably, were sometimes breached, allowing extraordinary mistakes to escape into circulation, and the Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark beneath the date, was especially busy that year, striking massive quantities of Lincoln cents that were meant to be copper-plated zinc, yet within this sea of identical coins, the potential exists for something incredibly rare to have slipped through, something that should never have existed. And that is where the legend of the multimillion-dollar 1996 D penny begins, because value in numismatics is not determined by age alone but by rarity, condition, historical context, demand, and most importantly, uniqueness, and when multiple high-level errors or anomalies converge on a single coin, its value does not increase linearly, it explodes exponentially. And the 1996 D cent is believed by some experts and advanced collectors to be a possible candidate for several such extreme scenarios, beginning with the possibility of wrong planchet errors, where a penny is struck on a metal blank intended for another denomination, such as a dime, a foreign coin, or even experimental or leftover planchets from prior years, and if a 1996 D cent were proven to be struck on a bronze planchet from pre-1982 stock, or on an aluminum or steel experimental blank, or on a planchet intended for a completely different country or denomination, the rarity would immediately place it among the most valuable error coins ever known, but that alone would not push it into eight-figure territory. What truly elevates this coin into legendary status is the theoretical combination of multiple errors occurring simultaneously, such as a wrong metal composition paired with an off-center strike, a double strike, or a broad strike, all while maintaining pristine mint state condition. Because the condition of an error coin matters just as much as the error itself, and a dramatic error that survives circulation without damage is exponentially rarer than one that shows wear. And then there is the possibility of double dies, which are among the most coveted varieties in Lincoln cent collecting, caused not by machine doubling but by a misalignment during the die creation process that results in doubled design elements visible under magnification. And while many double die cents are minor, some are dramatic, bold, and unmistakable, and if a previously unknown, extremely strong double die obverse or reverse variety from the Denver Mint in 1996 were discovered, especially one affecting major design elements like the date, mint mark, or Lincoln's portrait, it would instantly become one of the most important modern double dies ever found. But again, even that alone would not justify a $14 million price tag unless paired with additional extraordinary factors, such as a transitional error involving the wrong alloy composition during a time when the mint was experimenting, adjusting, or recycling materials, because the mid-1990s were a period of ongoing evaluation of cent compositions due to rising copper costs, and any documented anomaly showing a deviation from the standard copper-plated zinc composition would attract intense scrutiny and demand from collectors, museums, and investors alike. And then we must consider the possibility of mule errors, where mismatched dies are used together, such as a cent obverse paired with a die intended for a different denomination or year, an error so rare that only a handful are known across all U.S. coinage, and if a 1996 D cent were discovered with such a pairing, authenticated by leading grading services, it would instantly become a once-in-a-generation numismatic discovery. But beyond the physical errors themselves lies the psychology of collectors and the dynamics of the high-end coin market. Because prices at the very top are not driven solely by intrinsic rarity, they are driven by competition among wealthy collectors who want to own something that no one else can, something that becomes a centerpiece of a collection, something that defines a legacy, and when only one example of a coin exists, or when a single coin is far superior to any others known, bidding wars can escalate values into astonishing territory, as has been seen with famous coins like the 1933 Double Eagle, the 1804 Silver Dollar, and the 1913 Liberty Nickel, all of which achieved multi-million-dollar prices not just because they were rare, but because they were iconic, controversial, and surrounded by stories of mystery and exclusivity, and the idea of a 1996 D penny joining this elite group is what fuels the excitement, because it challenges the assumption that only ancient or 19th-century coins can be worth fortunes, reminding us that rarity is not a function of age but of circumstance. And when we talk about the $14 million valuation specifically, it is important to understand that this figure represents a theoretical maximum under ideal conditions, meaning a coin that combines multiple high-level mint errors, is unique or nearly unique, is authenticated beyond any doubt by the most respected grading authorities, is preserved in exceptional condition, and emerges at a time when collector demand is intense and competitive, because value is always contextual, and the same coin discovered in a different market environment might bring significantly less, yet still an extraordinary sum, and the reason such valuations are even discussed is because modern era coins have shattered expectations in recent years, with certain pennies, nickels, and quarters selling for hundreds of thousands or even millions when the right combination of rarity and hype converges. And another crucial factor in the potential value of the 1996 D cent is the sheer number of coins struck that year, because high mintage paradoxically increases the odds that rare errors exist, while simultaneously making their discovery more difficult, as they are buried within billions of ordinary examples, meaning that many could still be sitting unnoticed in collections, jars, or bank rolls, and this possibility fuels the ongoing search by collectors who meticulously examine cents under magnification, weigh them, test their metal composition, and compare them against known varieties, hoping to uncover something extraordinary, and the Denver Mint's production environment itself adds another layer of intrigue, because differences in equipment calibration, die maintenance, and quality control between mints can result in unique error patterns, making Denver minted coins particularly interesting to specialists, and when you combine that with the fact that the Lincoln cent design is one of the most studied and collected series in American numismatics, any new discovery within it is guaranteed immediate attention and demand, and we must also address the role of certification and provenance, because no coin, no matter how spectacular, achieves legendary value without ironclad authentication and a documented history, and if a 1996 D cent were discovered today exhibiting unprecedented errors, it would undergo months or even years of analysis, metallurgical testing, and peer review before being accepted as genuine, and once certified, its story would become part of its value, with articles written, videos produced, and debates sparked across the numismatic community, further elevating its profile and desirability, and it is this storytelling aspect that often propels coins into the realm of cultural artifacts rather than mere collectibles, and another layer that cannot be ignored is the speculative nature of high-end coin collecting, where investors seek tangible assets with historical significance as a hedge against economic uncertainty, and a unique modern coin with a dramatic backstory can attract buyers who may not even collect pennies but see the value in owning a singular piece of American minting history, and when such buyers enter the market, prices can escalate rapidly, especially if the coin is offered at a major auction with global exposure, where competitive bidding and media attention amplify its perceived importance. Next, 1989 1-cent coin. Today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and controversial penny legends ever whispered about in the numismatic world, a story that has stunned collectors, fueled late-night searches through coin jars, and sparked endless debates among experts, because this is the unbelievable tale of a 1989 1-cent that, according to rumors, theories, and extreme possibilities, could be worth as much as $13 million due to a perfect storm of rare errors. Minting mistakes, and once-in-a-lifetime circumstances. And as we begin this journey, keep in mind that coins are not just metal discs but historical artifacts created by human hands and machines that sometimes fail in spectacular ways, and when those failures align with rarity, demand, and mystery, they can create values that seem almost impossible. So imagine holding a simple copper-colored penny dated 1989, a year most people associate with everyday life and not with numismatic miracles, yet within that ordinary date lies the potential for extraordinary wealth, because 1989 was a year when millions upon millions of Lincoln cents were struck at multiple mints, especially Philadelphia and Denver, using copper-plated zinc planchets that had replaced the older bronze composition years earlier, and under normal circumstances a 1989 cent is worth exactly 1 cent, nothing more, nothing less. But the reason collectors still talk about a possible $13,001,989 cent is because of a combination of theoretical and documented mint errors that, if found together on a single coin in pristine condition with verifiable provenance, could rewrite price records forever. And the first layer of this mystery begins with the possibility of a wrong planchet error, one of the most dramatic mistakes a mint can make, where a cent is struck not on its intended copper-plated zinc blank but on a blank meant for another denomination or even another metal entirely, such as a bronze planchet left over from earlier years, a dime planchet, or in the most extreme and legendary scenarios, a planchet intended for a foreign coin or experimental alloy. And if a genuine 1989 cent were struck on a solid bronze planchet with the pre-1982 copper composition, authenticated and proven to have originated from official mint operations, it would already be worth a fortune, because post-1982 bronze cents are among the most coveted errors in American coinage, but the value skyrockets even further when combined with additional anomalies, such as a double die obverse where the date, lettering, and Lincoln's profile show strong, clearly separated doubling caused by misalignment during the hubbing process, and while minor doubling exists on many coins, a true dramatic double die that escaped quality control in 1989 would be exceptionally rare, especially one showing bold separation visible to the naked eye, and collectors know that the stronger and more visually striking the doubling, the higher the demand, especially if the date is modern enough to still be found in circulation, adding to the treasure hunt appeal. And then comes the possibility of a mule error, one of the rarest and most sensational mistakes imaginable, where the obverse and reverse dies from two different coins are paired together incorrectly. And while no officially confirmed 1989 cent mule with another denomination reverse has ever been publicly sold, the hypothetical existence of such a coin, such as a Lincoln cent obverse paired with a Roosevelt dime reverse or another unexpected design, would instantly place it among the most valuable error coins in history, because mule errors defy the entire minting system and prove that multiple layers of checks failed simultaneously, and even a partial mule or transitional reverse design error would command enormous attention, especially if discovered in uncirculated condition. And speaking of transitional errors, 1989 sits within an era of strict composition standards, which makes any deviation incredibly valuable, because by that time the mint had fully transitioned to copper-plated zinc cents, so any cent from 1989 struck on a leftover bronze blank or on a planchet with incorrect thickness, weight, or metal content would indicate a serious procedural breakdown, and collectors would scrutinize the coin's weight down to fractions of a gram, test its metallic composition, and analyze its edge for plating anomalies, because a missing or partial copper plating error revealing raw zinc beneath can also add value, especially if the plating failure is dramatic and uniform rather than damage caused by circulation. And while missing plating alone would not reach millions, when combined with other errors it becomes part of a larger narrative of rarity, and that narrative grows even stronger when we consider off-metal strikes, such as a cent struck on an aluminum planchet or experimental alloy, which the mint has tested at various points in history. And although aluminum cents are more famously associated with 1974, the mere possibility of experimental blanks lingering or being reused in later years keeps collectors searching, because an authenticated off-metal strike from 1989 would be nothing short of explosive news in the numismatic community. And then there is the realm of dramatic strike errors, such as broad strikes, off-center strikes, and multiple strikes, where the coin is struck more than once or struck without a retaining collar, causing the design to spread outward, and while these errors are relatively common individually, an extreme multi-strike off-center broad strike with full date, mint mark, and dramatic visual impact could elevate a coin into elite status, especially if paired with other anomalies like doubling or wrong planchet composition. And as we move deeper into this story, we must talk about mint marks, because 1989 cents were struck primarily in Philadelphia with no mint mark, and in Denver with a D mint mark, and any anomaly involving a mint mark, such as a repunched mint mark, an inverted mint mark, or a mint mark punched over another, could add significant value, particularly if the error is bold and well documented. And although repunched mint marks are more common in earlier decades, their appearance on a late 1980s coin would be highly unusual and desirable. And collectors would also be fascinated by the possibility of a missing mint mark on a coin that should have one, or an added mint mark on a coin that should not, both of which would indicate tampering unless proven otherwise. So authentication becomes everything, because the difference between a genuine mint error and a manipulated coin is the difference between $13 million and 13 cents, and that brings us to condition, because even the rarest error loses value if the coin is damaged, worn, or cleaned. So the hypothetical $13,001,989 cent would need to be in near perfect uncirculated or proof-like condition, with sharp details, original luster, and no signs of post-mint damage, and ideally it would be certified by a top grading service, encapsulated, and backed by extensive research, metallurgical testing, and historical documentation. And provenance plays a massive role here, because a coin with a clear chain of custody, perhaps discovered in a sealed mint bag, an original roll, or a documented estate collection, carries far more credibility than one that appears out of nowhere with no supporting story. And collectors are willing to pay premiums not just for rarity but for trust, and when trust meets legend, prices can climb beyond what logic alone would suggest. And the idea of a $13 million penny is fueled not just by metal and mistakes but by psychology, media attention, and the human love of impossible stories, because when a coin becomes famous, its value is no longer based solely on its physical attributes but also on its narrative. And a 1989 cent that combines multiple extreme errors, verified authenticity, and widespread publicity could attract billionaire collectors, museums, and investors who are willing to pay staggering amounts for the right to own a piece of history, especially one that challenges what we think we know about modern coinage. And while skeptics rightly point out that no confirmed sale of a 1989 cent at $13 million has occurred publicly, the numismatic market is full of surprises, and private sales, undisclosed transactions, and future discoveries always leave the door open for records to be broken. And this is why people continue to search their change, because every legendary coin started as an ordinary piece of currency, unnoticed and uncelebrated, until someone looked closely enough to see something wrong, something different, something extraordinary. And that is the heart of this story, the reminder that mistakes can be valuable, that errors can become treasures, and that even in a modern world of advanced technology, human systems are never perfect, leaving room for anomalies that capture our imagination and challenge our assumptions. And whether or not a $13,001,989 penny ever officially surfaces, the possibilities keep the hunt alive, inspire new collectors to learn, and turn everyday coins into gateways to history, mystery, and potential fortune. And if you are watching this right now with a jar of pennies nearby, maybe you will look a little closer, weigh them, inspect the dates, examine the edges. Next, 1984 D1 cent. Today we are diving deep into one of the most mysterious, controversial, and valuable Lincoln cents ever discussed in numismatic circles, the legendary 1984 D1 cent that has stunned collectors, experts, and treasure hunters alike with whispered valuations reaching as high as $12 million, a number so shocking it sounds impossible for a simple penny. Yet the combination of errors, production chaos, and extraordinary circumstances surrounding this coin has created a perfect storm of rarity, intrigue, and immense value that continues to fuel debate and fascination across the coin collecting world. And before you dismiss this as another exaggerated internet claim, stay with us because we are going to explore every realistic possibility, documented mistake, theoretical scenario, and historical context that could make a 1984 D Lincoln cent worth more than luxury mansions. supercars, and entire collections combined, and it all begins with understanding what was happening at the Denver Mint in the early 1980s, a time when the United States Mint was undergoing significant changes in materials, quality control pressures, high production demands, and evolving technology that occasionally allowed extraordinary errors to slip through unnoticed. Especially during years like 1984 when billions of pennies were struck and the margin for human and mechanical failure was dangerously thin, creating opportunities for rare mistakes to escape into circulation, and the 1984 D penny already holds a special place in numismatic history due to one of the most famous Lincoln cent errors ever discovered, the 1984 double die obverse, an error so dramatic that even casual collectors can spot it without magnification, showing heavy doubling on Lincoln's ear, beard, bow tie, and lettering, making it one of the most visually striking double dies ever released. And while standard examples of this error already command thousands of dollars depending on condition, the $12 million valuation does not come from the common double die alone but from extreme hypothetical and undocumented variations that could exist due to the same minting conditions, including multiple hubbings gone catastrophically wrong, die clashes combined with misalignment, transitional planchet errors, wrong metal compositions, experimental alloy tests, and unique die states that may have been struck only once or a handful of times before being destroyed or overlooked, and to understand how this could happen we need to look closely at the minting process itself, because coins are not simply stamped once and released, they are the result of multiple steps involving master hubs, working dies, planchets, presses, inspections, and human oversight, and any failure at any stage can create anomalies that defy standard classification, especially during eras when minting volumes were astronomical and quality control was forced to balance speed with precision. And in 1984 the Denver Mint produced over 4 billion Lincoln cents, an almost unimaginable quantity, meaning even a minuscule error rate could result in thousands of mistakes, but within that massive ocean of coins, a single extreme anomaly could easily disappear unnoticed for decades, possibly sitting in a jar, drawer, or collection waiting to be discovered, and the most famous known error from this year, the double die obverse, was caused by misalignment during the hubbing process where the working die received multiple impressions that were not perfectly aligned, resulting in a dramatic doubling that transferred onto every coin struck from that die, but what collectors speculate is that other dies during that year may have experienced even worse misalignment, including rotated hubbings, offset impressions, or partial hubbing events that were caught quickly and destroyed. Yet what if one such die struck only a few coins before being pulled, creating an ultra-rare variant that has never been publicly documented, and if such a coin also happened to be struck on the wrong planchet, the value would skyrocket beyond conventional price guides, because wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most valuable mistakes in modern U.S. coinage, and in the early 1980s the Mint was still dealing with the aftermath of the 1982 transition from bronze to copper-plated zinc cents, meaning multiple metal compositions were being handled, tested, and occasionally mixed within the minting environment, creating opportunities for experimental or leftover planchets to be struck with later dates, and while officially the 1984 cent should only exist as copper-plated zinc, the possibility of a 1984 D cent struck on a bronze planchet, or even a foreign or experimental alloy planchet, would create a numismatic unicorn, especially if combined with a major double die or multiple simultaneous errors, and this is where the valuation begins to climb into the millions, because collectors are not just paying for metal or age, they are paying for uniqueness, documentation, historical significance, and the sheer impossibility of replication, and when a coin represents a perfect storm of errors that cannot be reproduced or predicted, its value becomes limited only by what elite collectors are willing to pay, and at the highest levels of numismatics, private collectors, museums, and investment funds are known to spend 8 figures for singular artifacts that redefine categories, and a 1984 D cent exhibiting an unprecedented combination of errors could absolutely reach that realm, especially if certified by a top grading service and backed by metallurgical analysis confirming its authenticity. And another possibility that fuels the $12 million speculation involves die trial strikes, coins struck during testing phases that were never intended for circulation, which sometimes escape the mint due to oversight or internal handling errors, and these trial strikes can feature incomplete designs, missing elements, extreme doubling, or unusual finishes, and if a 1984 D cent was struck as a die trial on an experimental blank and later entered circulation unnoticed, it would represent a historical artifact rather than a standard coin, elevating it far beyond normal error pricing. And then there is the possibility of mule errors, where mismatched dies are paired together, such as an obverse from one year and a reverse from another, or even from a different denomination entirely. And while mule errors are exceedingly rare in modern sense, they are not impossible, and a confirmed 1984 D Lincoln cent mule with a previously unknown reverse design would instantly become one of the most famous mint errors in U.S. history, commanding a price that could rival legendary coins like the 1913 Liberty nickel or the 1804 silver dollar. And even without a mule, extreme die clashes that leave ghostly impressions of opposing designs overlapping Lincoln's portrait could create visually shocking coins that defy traditional classification, and when such dramatic visuals are combined with rarity and historical mystery, collector demand becomes intense and emotional, driving prices into uncharted territory. And another factor that cannot be ignored is condition, because error coins in mint state with full original luster and no post-mint damage are exponentially more valuable than worn examples, and a flawless uncirculated 1984 D error cent preserved since the day it was struck would be almost miraculous, suggesting it was pulled directly from a mint bag or roll and protected for decades, and such provenance adds another layer of desirability that wealthy collectors actively seek. And beyond the physical characteristics, the story behind the coin matters just as much, because numismatics is not only about objects but narratives. And a coin that represents a failure of systems, a moment of chaos in mass production, or a glimpse into the hidden processes of the U.S. Mint carries a story that resonates deeply with collectors, historians, and investors alike. And as awareness of rare coin value spreads through social media, YouTube, and mainstream news, competition for top-tier rarities has intensified, pushing prices higher than ever before. And when rumors circulate about a previously unknown $12 million penny, it captures the imagination of millions, inspiring people to check their change, revisit old collections, and dream of discovering a fortune hiding in plain sight. And while skepticism is healthy, history has repeatedly shown that the impossible often becomes reality in numismatics, as coins once dismissed as myths later surface and shatter records, and the 1984 D1 cent sits at the intersection of documented errors and speculative possibilities, making it one of the most exciting modern pennies to study, search for, and discuss, because even if the $12 million example has not yet been publicly revealed, the conditions that could create such a coin undeniably existed. Last 2012 1 cent, today for the first time, because this channel is dedicated to uncovering the secrets behind rare coins, valuable errors, and unbelievable stories hiding inside ordinary pocket change, and today we are revealing one of the most fascinating, controversial, and potentially life-changing stories in modern American numismatics. The mysterious 2012 1 cent that some experts and advanced collectors believe could be worth as much as $10 million due to a remarkable combination of minting errors, production mistakes, and extraordinary circumstances that challenge everything most people think they know about modern pennies. Because while many assume that only old coins from the early 20th century or earlier can reach extreme values, the truth is that modern coins struck in massive quantities can sometimes produce the rarest and most valuable anomalies of all. And the year 2012 represents a particularly interesting moment in the history of the United States Mint, a year defined by record-high production pressure, evolving metal sourcing, die fatigue, automation reliance, and quality control strain, all of which created ideal conditions for serious minting errors to slip through unnoticed and enter circulation. And the Lincoln cent struck in 2012, primarily composed of copper-plated zinc, was produced by the billions across multiple facilities, including the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and whenever output reaches this scale, the statistical probability of extreme errors increases, not just minor defects but monumental mistakes that can fundamentally alter a coin's identity, composition, and historical significance. And one of the most compelling reasons the 2012 1 cent has attracted multi-million-dollar speculation is the possibility of a wrong planchet strike, one of the most valuable error types known, where a cent is struck on a blank intended for an entirely different coin or purpose, because during this period the mint handled multiple Denominations, foreign contracts, commemoratives, and experimental blanks within the same facilities, and if a 2012 cent were accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a different denomination such as a dime, quarter, dollar coin, or even a foreign coin blank, the resulting piece would immediately stand out due to abnormal weight, thickness, diameter, and metal composition. And history has shown that wrong planchet errors from modern years can command extraordinary prices when authenticated. Especially when the error involves a higher value or unusual metal, and if such a 2012 cent were struck on a planchet composed of a rare alloy, experimental metal, or transitional material, its uniqueness alone could place it among the most valuable modern coins ever discovered, but the intrigue deepens further when we consider the possibility of experimental composition errors. Because while the official composition of the Lincoln cent remained copper-plated zinc during this time, the mint continuously tested alternative metals due to cost fluctuations, environmental concerns, and durability issues, and experimental blanks are known to exist in limited numbers, sometimes entering the striking process unintentionally. And a 2012 1 cent struck on an experimental alloy not approved for circulation would represent a forbidden survivor of a testing phase never meant to leave the mint, making it not only rare but historically sensitive, and coins tied to experimental programs often achieve staggering valuations because they reveal hidden chapters of mint history, and beyond composition errors, die-related mistakes play a crucial role in the $10 million valuation discussion, particularly the possibility of a true double die, not mechanical doubling caused by loose dies, but genuine hub doubling created during the die manufacturing process when misalignment occurs between impressions, producing dramatic, raised, and clearly separated doubling on design elements, and if a 2012 double die cent exists with strong doubling on the date, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or Lincoln's portrait, it would already be a major discovery, but if such doubling appeared in combination with other anomalies such as off-metal striking or die misalignment, the value would multiply exponentially rather than incrementally. And this stacking of errors is one of the primary reasons collectors believe a $10 million valuation is theoretically possible, because numismatic history demonstrates that coins combining multiple high-order errors often break pricing models entirely, and then there is the possibility of a mule error, one of the rarest and most dramatic minting mistakes, where mismatched dies from different denominations or series are paired together accidentally, and while mule errors are exceptionally rare for modern cents, they are not impossible, especially during periods of die replacement or testing, and a 2012 1 cent struck with a reverse or obverse die intended for another denomination, series, or even a different year would represent a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, instantly attracting worldwide attention, scholarly debate, and elite collector interest, and the presence of conflicting design elements on a single coin would make it unmistakable, irrefutable, and historically significant. And another major contributor to the speculative value of the 2012 1 cent is the possibility of a double denomination strike, where a coin receives impressions from two different denominations in separate striking events, creating ghosted or overlapping features that defy standard minting logic, and such errors are among the rarest known in U.S. coinage, often commanding extraordinary premiums due to their visual drama and technical impossibility under normal conditions, and if a 2012 cent were proven to have undergone such a process, it would instantly become one of the most studied and coveted modern error coins in existence, and beyond. Striking anomalies, planchet preparation errors also deserve attention, including improper alloy mixing, incomplete plating, missing cladding, or uneven bonding between metal layers, because the copper plating on zinc cents is applied through an electroplating process, and disruptions during this process can result in exposed zinc cores, blistered surfaces, peeling layers, or partial plating coverage. And while minor examples are common, an extreme plating failure combined with other errors could elevate a coin into a completely different valuation category, especially if it reveals underlying processes rarely observed by the public, and then there is the possibility of a dramatic off-center or broad strike error, where the coin is struck without the restraining collar or is significantly misaligned, producing distorted shapes, missing elements, and expanded diameters. And while such errors alone may not reach extreme values, when combined with wrong planchets, double dies, or experimental alloys, they can contribute to a cumulative rarity that pushes valuations into unprecedented territory, and one of the most intriguing and speculative aspects of the 2012 1-cent story involves the concept of intentional destruction avoidance, where a coin that should have been caught and destroyed by quality control somehow escaped into circulation, because the mint's internal protocols mandate the destruction of certain experimental or unauthorized strikes, and any coin surviving outside those protocols becomes an unintentional artifact, and artifacts created through error rather than intent often achieve legendary status among collectors, and this is where the $10 million figure gains psychological traction, because value at this level is not determined solely by rarity, but by narrative, by controversy, by unanswered questions, and by the human desire to own something that should not exist, and high-end numismatic auctions are driven by competition among collectors who are not merely buying metal, but acquiring stories, prestige, and historical disruption, and a unique 2012 cent that exposes internal mint processes, experimental practices, or catastrophic errors would check every box that drives record-setting sales, and skeptics often argue that modern coins cannot reach such values because they lack age. But this argument ignores the fact that some of the most valuable coins in history are valuable precisely because they represent anomalies rather than antiquity, and coins like the 1943 copper cent, the 1974 aluminum cent, and the 2000 Sacagawea mule were once dismissed as myths or curiosities before becoming cornerstones of modern numismatics, and the same trajectory could apply to a unique 2012 1 cent if it were authenticated, documented, and presented transparently to the collecting world, and authentication would play a critical role, involving metallurgical analysis, weight verification, die study, strike pattern examination, and historical correlation with known mint practices, and once certified by a top grading authority, such a coin would likely be placed into a special category due to its uniqueness, further enhancing its appeal and legitimacy, and from there, the market dynamics of elite collectors, museums, investment groups, and private institutions would take over, potentially driving the value into 8-figure territory through competitive bidding and long-term asset positioning, and this is why collectors are encouraged to examine their 2012 cents carefully, not with unrealistic expectations, but with informed curiosity, checking for unusual weight, magnetic behavior, abnormal color, distorted design elements, missing or double details.